They burn your game. They burn your cards. They burn your
I'm not sure what you're referencing here. Could you be more specific? As I said, pellucid.
Conniving morning, then you had your pocket full. In a biz there'll be morning. Now because you money done, you hustle for tell me morning. Yes, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. neighbor joker, neighbor, neighbor joker, neighbor, neighbor joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. That's all the money that me walk for.
I said money, neighbor,
Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. I don't want you conniving money.
oh Joseph.
Well, I invoke the WPA's position that we are engaging in civil disobedience and non-cooperation with the government, and on that grounds I refuse to participate in the interview. The question in struggle, is not personal. Whatever sacrifice as a political activist or a political leader you have to make for your people, you have to make it.
Guyana and Guyanese, at home and abroad. Tune in to Guyanese Morning Time, hosted by Kadaki Amsterdam, where the sun always shines. Guyanese Morning Time, the people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. We rise up early morning watching Kams Tv, where wisdom and knowledge, yes, it is the key. Exposing corruptions over land and sea, where the wicked politicians they try to trick me. Guyana is a land for everybody. With 6 races should live in harmony. Is one set of people getting oil money. Is one set of people doing the thievery. Beep, beep. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. This is a program that you all can see, sharing your views and your integrity. Like it, comment and share it all around. Pass it to your neighbor, safe and sound. A sad situation going on in this town. The voice of the people is getting trampled down. Out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, which has ordained me to sing. I sing Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. Stop fooling the people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. Stop fooling people. You're promoting evil. Stop lying to the people. You are a part of the cycle. I say Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again. They got Brickford, Bork and Mark Benchcop. David Hines and Kadaki Amsterdam. Sherrod Duncan, Nigel London. Normal Brown and Gavin Matthews. Big up Paslow, Port People Governor. Simona Brooms, Robin Simpson. Hampton Green and Winston Jordan. And yes, we can go right on and on. Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again, Guyanese Morning Time. The people calling Guyanese Morning Time. Rhythm, rhythm, Guyanese Morning Time. Intelligence and knowledge run the front line. We go again.
The relatives and friends of young Wyndham Bacchus, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of our in Boston, they deserve justice. The family, the relatives and friends of Peter Headley, they deserve justice.
And so when we say that Guyana is an apartheid state, we have the evidence to show.
You put in a 12 cents meatball, you was gonna lice. I gonna give you a word of advice. Take your meat out my rice.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Remvelt Market Meat section. Call us on 609-2049. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop brings you the best in fresh cut meats and lots.
Morning. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. It is 7 hours 28 on the 29th day of August in the year 2023. How you doing? How you make out yesterday? How you keeping? How you survived last night? Were you able to rest and recuperate? Are you energized today to join the protest in front of GCOM? Yeah, we're going to be in front of GCOM from about 11:30, protesting for a clean voters list and biometrics. Marinani in the US recently said that, paraphrasing here, he's not interested in any elections that doesn't have biometrics. It's a position I've been holding for quite a while, that the list needs to be clean and biometrics used to strengthen the barriers to fraud or reduce the possibilities of fraud taking place at the next elections. And so I'm happy to see we're not making that call publicly. And I'm also encouraging you guys and gals, citizens, let's go there today and join with the usual protesters, and so we can grow the numbers of people who are calling for a clean voters list and biometrics. Let's go there. Good? So I'll see you out there today. And those of you who are listening to the program, I encourage you to join us. Please do. Now, I saw first and foremost, I don't know who's Worsley Paris, but Paris says, Kams, you should be really careful with your words. I can support y'all and you talk, I guess he wants to say, or she wants to say, I can't support y'all, and you're talking things you know nothing about. Inquiry is over. I don't know what Paris is talking about. And so in the interest of clarity, I would like if Paris can give me some clarity. By the same means that he posted this here, you can message me on the live chat and say, well, Mr. Amsterdam of yours, this is what I'm talking about. Good? You see, you have the benefit of replay. So you can listen to what I said and perhaps listen to it for the second time and third time and come to your conclusion. But then, if you're going to raise it with me, you have to raise it in context. What is it that you don't support, or what is it I said that I don't know about? Which inquiry is over? I want to know those things so I can respond. Right? I want to be able to respond. Like I give people the right of response. I do that. Yes, so one of the things I promised to address this morning is this matter relating to placement exams. The person raising this matter, I don't think I would have the benefit. Maybe she is on the program this morning. But let's go.
APNU are persons who have a pleasant good morning, Mr. Amsterdam and fellow listeners. I just would like to draw the entire Guyana attention to a situation that is happening at the Ministry of Education, most especially the exam division. Now, I recently learned that there is a placement examination where students write this examination throughout Guyana, and based upon the grades or the marks that a student has obtained, that child is placed at a school of their choice or a school within that mark that they have obtained. So if maybe I'm assuming that the child is at a junior secondary and the child, after having written the exam, has obtained a grade that will qualify that child to go to a senior secondary, then that child should be placed there. I think that is the purpose of the placement. But what I want to draw to Guyanese attention, black people, wake up, stay woke. Mr. Kadaki, please investigate there. There's some kind of fraud going on at this placement examination and the placing of students, because I have learned that students who have written the exam some of them are being sent back to the same school that they had attended, and when parents queried as to the grade the child has gotten, the personnel who are responsible for the placement refused to give them the grade. And so what I'm saying here is a relative of mine, so I know what I'm saying, is authentic. And so what I'm saying here is a strategy being used by the government, using the Ministry of Education to marginalize, to place the black student in depressed or not developed schools, so-called schools, developing quote, okay? Prestigious schools with good reputation. So what is going to happen here now, what is going to happen, the strategy that is being used here now is that if an Indian child, allegedly, has gotten a low grade at GSAT and the child is placed at a junior secondary, when this child takes the placement examination, the opportunity presents itself where that child will be placed at one of the prestigious, so-called in quotes, school like Queens or Saints. And if the marks of the students are not being given, how do you know that that child has obtained a mark to go to one of those schools? But what is happening here, I'm seeing, is that these Indian children are being placed in these schools. This placement examination is being used to place these children at these schools so they have opportunity for the best education. The black child now will be sent to a less recognized school or maybe back to the same school. Guyanese, open your eyes. Look what is happening to our children. That's another strategy by this government to keep down the black man, to keep down our children. Open our eyes, Mr. Amsterdam. I want you to investigate. This is very serious. And in addition to that, they have everything planned. What they're doing now, the black people who are responsible for the exams that are in some of those ministries, they are being moved from their substantive positions, and Indian persons who will do their work for them are replacing them. Okay? And these people are being removed without any written explanation as to the reason for why they are removed from their positions. And we need an investigation by the APNU or persons who have the interest of the black persons in mind. Guyanese, please take note as to what is happening with the education of our children. Very, very important. These are our future. These are the future leaders. These are the people who will represent us in the future. We can't let them destroy them. Thank you so much, sir. Please do your investigation ASAP.
Oh, her dramatic walk to the microphone.
Hey, black child, do you know who you are? can be. Hey, black child, do you know where you're going? Where you're really going? Do you know you can learn what you want to learn? If you try to learn what you can learn. Hey, black child, do you know you are strong? I mean really strong? Do you know you can do what you want to do? If you try to do what you can do. Hey, black child, be what you can be. Learn what you must learn. Do what you can do. And tomorrow, your nation will be what you want it to be.
Morning and welcome to the program. You know, what's his name said? I was buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I got a feeling. Boja Bantan, I hope I'm quoting the words right. This voice note is expressive of the fears that many of us have in this society, and many of us have lived and are continuing to live in this society. Corruption in the education system. Right? Corruption in the education system. For all the years I've been in the field of education, allegations have always been made that corruption abounds in the education system. And when allegations are made of corruption, how do you deal with those allegations? How do you deal with a system that is perceived as corrupt? Transparency is one of the ways you can deal with it. Make the processes transparent. And so you are not the sole arbiter. You are not the sole custodian of the facts in relation to these matters. But in Guyana, for the most part, when allegations of corruption are made, people batten down, they circle the wagons. They make information inaccessible. They give you a hard time, a torrid time to get any information whatsoever. And so what this individual is pointing out through this voice note is what we have been experiencing, what we've been pointing out, what we've been complaining about for years. Since now I was a boy, I usually see. I'll get back to you. Let me talk about what I'm talking about. We'll talk about that. Yes. And so, let me give you a background so you understand the placement examination, and then we'll talk about some of the issues which the young lady has raised. Now, it's the policy of the Ministry of Education, as far as I know. I don't know that that policy has changed. That for the greater part, children who sit the National Grade 6 examination will be placed at schools closest to their homes, what they call placement areas. Right? So I know you're going to ask me, so if a child in Buxton writes examinations and gets enough marks to take him or her to Queen's College, will they be placed at the nearest secondary school in the area? No. There is a group of schools that they refer to as the national schools. I think that's the name. Right? The national schools. And those usually are the A-grade schools in Georgetown, which would be Queen's College, Bishop's, St. Rose's, St. Stanislaus College, President's College in Golden Grove. Right? I think those are the schools. I don't think I missed any there. I hope I didn't. That are considered national schools. And the places at national schools are limited. And so, like everything else, you have to have cut-off points. So when, that is why the rush is always who is going to be in the top 1% at the National Grade 6 exams. Because if you're in the top 1%, the cutoff point is not likely to affect you. Good? The top 100 and so on and so forth. Because schools have limited facility and schools therefore has a finite capacity. And so everybody tries to get there in that 1%. Or top 100 or top this, top that, because they get a better chance of being placed at one of the national schools. And at the national schools, you get, for the greater part, all of the resources that you need to support, need to facilitate your academic growth. And so naturally, everybody wants what is good for them. So when you move out of the national schools placement, this rule about the school closest to you comes into play. And so in every region, in every district, you're supposed to find senior secondary schools, junior secondary schools. But if you look at the spread of the schools around the country, it's not true that in every catchment area you have a junior and a senior secondary school. And so a child might score high, but not high enough for a national school, and unfortunately finds his or herself at one of the senior schools in his immediate environment. Parents usually are not happy with that because they want their children in the best schools. I don't have a fight with parents on that. The ministry has a policies regarding those things. And so the ministry, some people stick doggedly to the policy and say, well, this child can't go any place else. But let's say for the Buxton Friendship area or the East Coast area, I think the most senior secondary school on the East Coast might be the Hope Secondary. Right? In this stretch, I would say, well, let me talk from Buxton going east. We'll have, there's the Buxton Secondary, which is located in Friendship. Used to be the Buxton Community High School. They used to do a 6 and a 5-year program there. Perhaps they still do the 6 and 5-year program. When you leave here, you will go next to Bladenall Multilateral. Bladenall Multilateral over the years has been the senior school in the block between Buxton and, let's say, all the way up to Hope. Or as a matter of fact, when you leave Bladenall Secondary, let me take it in thing. When you leave Bladenall Secondary, the next secondary school you would have had previously is the Golden Grove Secondary, then President's College in that same vicinity. But since the construction of the Hope Secondary, when you leave Bladenall, you get to Hope Secondary, right? Hope Secondary. No, Bladenall, Golden Grove is before Hope. I hope Golden Grove is before Hope. Right, so you live there now, you get to Golden Grove, you get to Hope Secondary, and you get to Victoria. Right? You get to Hans Grove. Yeah, those are the stretch of schools. But Hans Grove Secondary is not, I'd say, comparable to Bladenall nor Hope. Likewise, Victoria is not. So you find, if you are in this catchment area, your main options will be what? Everybody will be trying to either get to Bladenall, get to Hope Secondary, get to Golden Grove Secondary, get to President's College. Right? That's if you're heading east. If you head west, you have the option of Annandale Secondary and Cummins Lodge Secondary. Those are the two senior schools I would say along the way. So if you do an exam, you do the National Grade 6 examination, and you find yourself at a school that is not acceptable. Your parents are not happy with that school. You're not happy with that school, especially that you scored high, but the cutoff point precluded you from going to a national school, and therefore you have to be settled in one of these schools in your immediate environment. There's an option. A lot of people are not aware of the option. At least for the greater part, a lot of people don't know anything about it. But that's where the school's placement examination comes in. right? The school placement examinations cater for people who are desirous of entering a secondary school above grade 7. If you have to enter grade 7, you're not allowed the school placement exam. You're supposed to do the national grade 6 assessment, right? Because after grade 6, you go to grade 7. Any place from grade 8 upward, you can do the national placement exam. Now, the placement exam was designed in my mind, in my understanding from my research, for a particular group of people. Let's start by saying, if you were migrating, you're coming back from some foreign country that you were living and you need to enter the school system here, you can do the placement exam. If you're a child of a diplomat, somebody might come as a diplomat into the country representing some foreign nation, they have to get his child into the public school, placement exam should be administered. If you are at grade 6, if you are at grade 7, if you enter the secondary school system at grade 7, and you're not satisfied with the school at which you've been placed, and you believe that you have a better opportunity of getting to a better school where you can do the placement exam. Right? So those are the categories of people who can do the placement exam. Now, if you are in a school system, and I'm addressing that in particular because that is what this voice note points to. If you are in a school system, secondary school, you are there, you are at a school that you're not satisfied with, you want to move on to another school where you think your chances of a better education will be assured, you do what? You do the national placement examination. But what's the criteria for you to be allowed to do the national placement examination? You have to show consistently high performance at the school that you currently are. That's a criteria. Good? And what is that consistently high performance? It used to be, when I investigated it years ago, it was 75% or so. You have to consistently score 75%. And then, in the term that you're going to take the examination, right, the academic year of that examination, you must maintain that 75%. That's first and foremost. So it's an average of 75% or above for the academic year of the exam, and 75% or above in maths and English for the academic year of the exam. So not just overall 75%, but maths and English, you must have that 75% average in the year that you're going to take the exam. Good? Whichever grade you're desirous of entering into at the other secondary school, you must have completed the grade before. So if you want to go to grade 9, you must have completed grade 8. Right? Good. Now, when is the examination given? The examination is usually given in the vacation period, I say August, between August and September. But the deadline for application usually is in July. Good? So sometime in July, if you go on the ministry's website, you might see the dates there when you can apply to do this placement examination. Good? And they allow you go through the necessary procedure. You submit your documents to prove that you have been doing, your report to be particular, that you are consistently this high performer and you maintain these grades and so on. And then time comes to the examination. What happens at the examination is as if you're doing a second, I would say, a second grade 6 exam. It's not grade 6, but it's a second examination to enter secondary school. Because the rules are basically, how you score on that exam will determine the secondary school you go to. So just like the national grade 6 exam, if you score high, let's say you're scoring the top 1%, you stand a good chance of going to one of the national schools. The same thing with the grade, with the placement examination. If you score high, then you get a better chance of going to one of the national schools. So a lot of people take the opportunity to do this placement with the hope of moving out of the lower secondary schools to the higher secondary schools. You can imagine, therefore, that usually the system will become overcrowded. Because remember, the placements in these schools are finite. And so there's a competition for space. And so the ministry tells us, your child will be allocated a place at a school based on, number one, performance at the national placement examination. And number two, most importantly, availability of space. So if your child goes, let's say the child is attending Buxton Secondary School and that child does the placement examination and gains a place at St. Stanislaus College, or gains enough marks to send them to St. Stanislaus College, and there is no space at St. Stanislaus College because the population remained constant at St. Stanislaus College, there are no dropouts and so on, and so there is no space. What happens to your child? What is the next best available option? Is there any? If we can't find space according to the ministry, then your child will simply have to remain where he or she was. That he or she would have to remain right where he or she was, despite having taken the placement examination. Now again, because there is a rush of people usually to get out of the lower secondary schools, there's a large number of people who will take the examinations with limited spaces available. What is expected that running is going to happen? Like the police force and driver's license. I know for a fact that there was a time in this country, I don't know if it still happens because they're doing it electronically and so on now, but maybe that makes it even more possible. But there was a time in this country when you wanted a driver's license, you didn't even have to show up in the examination room because the runnings was done where somebody writes your exam for you. And if you think that was bad, the worst was there was a problem, and perhaps still is, well, let me not go there. There was a problem in the system where your scripts were switched. So the examiners take money from somebody to ensure that they pass the exam. And they switch the script of the person who got the kind of grade that will ensure that you pass the examination. And that person fails. You pass. And you go on through at the expense of that person. It's a known corrupt practice. At least it happened in the day. I don't know if it still happens. What people started doing to that, to counter that, write the name on every page of this exam booklet, so nothing can get switched easily. Right? That was a countermeasure. But sticking with the exam story at placement, there are errors, I like to tell people, there are errors of commission and omission. And so there are very many levels of the system where your child could be disadvantaged in terms of either, we like to use the word docking, the scripts got docked, somebody switched the script, somebody switched the scores. And so because John Saul has a contact in the system, John Saul's grandchild's score could be mixed up for his advantage with somebody else's score. It can be explained by a simple typographical error if push comes to shove. And so there are many persons who have complained that based on their children's ability, they're not convinced that justice obtains at the national placement exams. As a matter of fact, the examination division, I think, is responsible for those exams. And so fingers are being pointed at members of staff of the exams division. It is alleged, let me say it is alleged, that there is a racket going on there. The voice note indicated that. Is it possible that that racket is taking place? Beyond the shadow of a doubt, yes it is. How do we intend to fix it? In the placement examination that protects anybody who is involved in corrupt practices in the administration of the examination. There is no provision for a review. So when we present to the parent or the child that this is your score, from the placement examination, our word is gospel. Our word, our declarations have to be taken as gospel because there is no review provision. You can't ask for a review. Now if you want to have a system of review, a review naturally allows an independent marker to have a second look at the script. And if that score correlates with the previous score, then it is kept. But if there is a vast difference, if there is a big variance in the scores, then obviously they will be called for further investigation or a declaration of a different score. And so when the parent or the young lady is saying that they asked for the script or asked for the score and they were told they can't get it, it is because of that ministry to make provisions for a review of these examinations. Just as how the nation regionally, Caribbean, are saying that they have problems with the HSB scores. The scores don't seem to be accurate. Calling for it to be reviewed. The thing is, it can be reviewed. CXC charges $30 for review. There's a deadline, I think it might be around the 4th of September, by which you have to submit for your review. A provision is made there for questioning the system. The technical examination, there's a provision for questioning the system. So why is there no provision for questioning the placement exam? That is what we have to fix. Because unless that is fixed, there's no means of appealing the result. And so parents in many instances leave with more confusion than clarity as to what really took place at this exam. And so when allegations are made of, or if allegations are made of corruption in relation to the national placement examination, how do you restore confidence to the system? How do you help people to have confidence? By transparency. Transparency dictates that we have provisions made for a review of the examination scripts. Who corruption benefits in the system? Who got money? Who has money? They say money talks and bullshit walks. And so the people have access to resources, financial resources especially. In some instances you can say human resources because people got big connections can use those connections and their money to influence the system. The contention of the voice noter, the system is benefiting Indo-Guyanese disproportionately. Is it reality? Yes. Is it reality that Indo-Guyanese to the greater part control the financial wealth and economy of this country? Yes. Are they the type of people who will engage in bribe taking and bribe making? The history before you. You can examine that. I have my opinions on it. Then nobody offer your fast inducement as anybody else in this country. So if you don't want these allegations to be made of ethnic cleansing across the country, including education, we have to create a transparent system. We as citizens have to demand transparent systems. To just complain about it is never enough. We have to act on it. How do we intend to act on it? When they can't find a place based on the score, they return you to the school. If they mix up or misplace your score, they return you to the school. If your score can be ascertained, they return you to the school. Well, how are parents or guardians made to believe that what they see is what they actually got? Good. Those are the things we need to address. Let's work on that like we're working on the good. You know, just the other day I was laughing with somebody, and I was using a simple analogy. We say we are promoting tourism and we're a developed nation and so on and so forth. But a matter as simple as Wi-Fi is a problem in this country. Can you walk in the capital city and get an option of 10, 15, 20 open sources of Wi-Fi that you can connect to make an international transaction? GT&T has a service called MMG. People got smartphones now. Is there any Wi-Fi that you can connect to quickly make an MMG payment or transact? We of punching in numbers and numbers and numbers. We don't have modernity. An examination like the placement examination, is it necessary that we have to do it manually? Because the more manual interaction we have with certain things, the more likely they are to become corrupt. Especially in this small society where people know people all around. You can multiple choice exam like the placement exam is, I think they call it objective, objective type questions. And by the time you have completed that exam, you can tell your score. But in this day and age, people with placement exam, number one, must go physically to an examination room. And number two, wait for why don't we have those systems in place? Because we want to facilitate what? Corruption. Departments of state, departments of government so reluctant to move into the technological era. Why? Because it will eliminate technology. But who is responsible for changing the system? We, the citizens. Play a part. That's all I can say. Don't let us only complain. Let's play a part. Children is asking if it's possible that the SBS were not uploaded electronically because SBS plays a major part as part of the grade. Any subject that is school-based assessment, let me change the statement. Any subject that school-based assessment is a part of will not return a grade 4 if the school-based assessment was not submitted. It has to be an inconclusive or incomplete grade. Can't submit a grade, it can't return a grade 4. Because from the fact that that component has not been submitted, the student cannot be assessed. I might be a little decadent in my understanding of the examination systems because I haven't been in the classroom system for quite a while. While I was at secondary school, if your score was below the grade 5 mark, I think, they used to call it unclassified. They don't know what to say about you. We used to call it uncle. What some people are suspecting is that they, because individually it will cost you $30 per review. Yes, Janet. Yes, Janet. I see where you're going with that. Right? I too was curious. Yes. So, like everything else, we have to intervene in an active manner to get these systems changed. That's all I want to say. He's asking if I saw the interview. Do you know what is learning by rote? R-O-T-E? I usually argue that the child who got 17, 18, 20 subjects at CXC is no better than the child who got 8 or 9 subjects at CXC with good grades. As a matter of fact, if you were to ask me, I would probably give the child with 9 good grades at CXC, the edge over that child who got 18 subjects. Because that child had more time to partake in extracurricular and other activities to develop the intellect. As against a child who was always focused on academia to achieve 18 or 19 or 20 passes at 60. Understand that? So you can contradict me if you have information that can contradict me. That's a test bank, like maybe any examination infrastructure. And so when you draw from that test bank, the possibility is questions will continue to repeat themselves. For example, I will tell you from listening to students who did this year's CXC examination, a whole lot of the mathematics questions were repeat questions from a previous year. And so if you're an educator, to a large extent you can predict what to expect coming on the exams. Apart from the fact that you're given a syllabus with the topics that you're supposed to prepare the children with or for, you can predict the questions by getting previous year's papers. Create your own question bank from the accumulation of previous year's papers, categorizing them and basically drilling them into your children's head. And so a child could come out at the top of the class or the top of the lot in the examination, Caribbean examination thing. But you find the child really can't reason. Trust me. And so that's no surprise to me. It's no surprise whatsoever. When I was at school, I know people used to buy paper. Some lessons children used to do their best to get to attend. Parents used to make those major sacrifices in terms of cost to get their children into certain lessons because the lessons were doing well. But why were they doing well? Behind the scenes, the owner or the operators of those lessons used to get it on their own runnings. He used to buy paper. Right? They used to buy paper. So, yes, I can understand whoever this person was, I can't remember right now, that they ain't got the reasoning power. Good? That's what it was. Who say I pretending as though I don't know what I'm talking about or what he's talking about with the Walter Rodney inquiry? I'm not the type to argue certain things, you know. I usually leave it to the judgment of the people. The evidence of the day shows that there was a conspiracy. I don't trust him either. But you can ask Jerry Gavayo. Ask him about his testimony. Was he saying that there was a commission of inquiry? Ask Granger why he has never made it public, the findings of the commission of inquiry. I tell you, in my mind, Borno was one of the best leaders this country had, if not the best. But that doesn't make it impossible for him to be complicit in the murder of political opponent or opponents. I will tell you that in my mind, Bornum up until time represented the best line of defense from African Guyanese re-enslavement. A visionary, people say. We see all of the policies that he had, which were benefiting the nation. We also see some of the craziness which had its negative impacts. When we are considering leaders and their leadership style and everything else, we must consider that there is good and bad in humans. Like Flash Gordon said, Bonham prevented Rodney perhaps from going to jail because when they were going to jail him to misbehave in the country, Bonham called and said, send him home. That's a good aspect. But did Bonham hung Walter Rodney and the party of Walter Rodney, members of the party of Walter Rodney? Yes. There was a WPA and still is, quite frankly, a WPA recognition handbook. I had a copy the other day. When in the 2000s I worked in the Public Relations and Education Department of the Ghana Defense Force, I saw a copy for myself firsthand. I held it in my hands. The WPA recognition handbook. It had the leading members of the WPA, their photograph and everything that you needed to know about them. Who was Commander-in-Chief of the Army at that time? Fox Bonham. So when we make these arguments about inquiry being completed, and Bonham didn't do this and Bonham didn't do that, sometimes in my mind we are just being sentimental. We would like Bonham to be the ultimate angel that he wasn't. Chetty was no angel. Jaggi is no angel. Ramattar is no angel. None of the presidents of this country, perhaps presidents across the world, can claim to be angels. Because long and short is, people will do anything to protect the power that they got. That's a fact. It's 23 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. Call and let's solve the thing. And among the things we're talking about, we're going in front of GCOM at 11:30 today. The lines are open. When it's saying that corruption in Ghana will soon get a GDP value rating, I think that was done before. Call it live, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I could not wait for this line. This is Flash Garden. Good morning to you.
Morning, are you morning? First and foremost, good morning. Welcome to the program. How are you doing? How was your yesterday? How are you doing today? How was your last night? Did you rest and recuperate? Secondly, tell me, how was the audio this morning? I realized some yesterday's replay, the audio was terrible. There was a lot of static, which I wasn't hearing from this end, but people were telling me that, you know, the feed was really bad. And so they wanted me to check some stuff, but I couldn't troubleshoot while the program was live. But I did do some troubleshooting. I hope it worked. Can you tell me, what's the audio like? How are we sounding? Perfect. Is he done? Henry Senior says it's perfect. Good. What else is perfect in Guyana? Morning. Welcome to the program. I hope you rested and recuperated well. I hope you made some money yesterday. I hope you were able to keep your jobs. I hope you were able to get new jobs. I trust that your family and family members are okay. Lance Anderson says it's a C rating, so it's a pass. And Kid Beresford is saying the audio is loud and clear in America. Good. So anybody who complains about audio this morning, I gotta tell them check their device, right? You know what a lot of people don't understand about these things, and I share not as an excuse. It's not excuses I'm making. I'm just sharing so you understand what you are dealing with. Many of us, what we use to do broadcasts, at least let me speak for myself. What I'm using is Dina Day technology and modern day technology. Y'all know what Dina Day refers to? Right, Dina Day. Right. It's analog meeting digital. So the computer system is really digital, but mixer boards, or the mixer board I'm using, is an analog device. And so when the two come together, there's never a seamless bonding. There's never seamless bonding. So sometimes you end up with all kinds of faults which you don't even recognize until after the fact. Good? So it's analog and digital together. Now, somebody is saying that there's static in the background. Well, I'll tell you, I tried my best. I really tried to remove that little static you're hearing in the background. Well, it's not static really, you know. Is that an ambient sound? What's the meaning of that? Ambient sound. I think it's an ambient sound. In that it comes from the device. Right? Comes from the device, and it is actually the fan. Right? It's the sound that the fan makes. Right, relating to the immediate surrounding of something, ambient. Good. So, yeah, it's a song that comes from the device. It's a song that, regardless of what we try, we'll never get rid of it. Right? So, when you hear that little shh in the background there, just understand that's your fan. Good. It's a teachable moment, so I like to take teachable moments and use them. Yeah, I like to do that. I am expecting Dr. Hines, but looking at the time, I doubt whether he's going to come on. Let me see if I can get a call to him to see what's happening. I'm not sure what's happening. Usually he's here before me, waiting to be let in. This morning I'm here, but he must have given up hope on me. Yeah, so I went out there yesterday as promised. We went out there for protest in front of GCOM. to sound the alarm or continue to make it clear that we are interested in seeing a clean voters list and biometrics, because we believe that a clean voters list and biometrics will go a far way in guaranteeing us or satisfying the call for free, fair, and credible elections. Right? Free, fair, and credible elections. And so we were out there yesterday. Not a large group of us, as I like to say, the usual suspects. Thank you to those of you who came out. But while while numbers matter, sometimes it's important to just show up. And I think we just did that yesterday. We showed up. And the few of us who were out there really sounded our voice, so that the matter of a clean voters list and biometrics remain on the agenda, or remain in the public domain. That those are two things we're trying to get before the next elections. My advice to those who came out: don't be disheartened. My advice to those who are viewing on social media: come out and support the cause. But don't be disheartened. There's some of you who generally can't come because of where you are. Your geographics and so on wouldn't permit you to come. But we thank you for your support nevertheless. Right? What I would want to see us do is each of us in our community work the community, work the roads, work the households, talk with people about the importance of biometrics and the importance of a clean voters list, and get them to buy in, get them to join the campaign. I usually argue social media is not enough. You can't get it all done on social media. And so the reality is we have to put boots on the ground to get certain bits and pieces of information out there. You know, we talk about the involvement of young people and so on, and the fact is sometimes we use a lot of terminology that young people ain't got an inkling of what we're talking about. Biometrics. With biometrics, the average Jaguar child did not matriculate. The average Jaguar child did not matriculate. In this day and age, you got an entire school examination class writing the CXC exams and can't matriculate. And this is not today business. This is long it started. And so you expect people to, at the drop of a hat, understand what you're talking about when you say biometrics. I myself must have had my challenges, but thank you to Google, I was able to research quickly and understand biometrics and words like demographics and so on. So it's important, it's necessary that we have foot soldiers, if we want to call ourselves that. Walk the community and talk with people so that they understand what it is the demands are, why the demands are being made, and how they are likely to improve the electoral system. WPA is saying they don't have resources. They are asking you to fund the campaign, contribute to the campaign fund. I support that call. Contribute to the campaign fund of the Working People's Alliance so that they can do more in the communities, they can do more nationally. Good? But like I usually say, you can have all the money, especially when it comes to politics. You can have all the money, but if you don't have human resources, people that believe in your cause, is a non-starter. Yeah, money can buy labor, but are you paying people to wage a political campaign that they did not or do not believe in? You're going to lose. I'll share you all a piece of history, a good laugh just now. And so when you recognize that, apart from money, apart from vehicles, the WPA is asking you to buy it a vehicle or several vehicles, a fleet of vehicles, so it can do efficient campaign work. So those of you who have access to who have a fancy 4x4 parking in your yard because you upgraded, you can donate it to the WPA. Right? Those of you who have a vehicle that you would like to donate to the campaign, hit me up. Hit up Dr. Hinds. Let's make arrangements to have it transferred and so on. Right? Good. So let's do that. But most importantly, let's encourage our family members. There are many of you who are overseas. You are supportive of the WPA. You want to see the WPA do its work. You believe it is doing good political work. Encourage your relatives who are down here to get on board with the WP so that we can get into the communities and we can spread the word. We can continue to educate. Each one teach one. It can be done in social media alone. Not even on television alone. Some people like that interpersonal connection. We could sit at a corner, we could gaff, and we could explain things. Questions can be asked. But if we're going to have people walk in the communities to do this kind of work, it is obvious. At some point in time, we have to bring those people together, sit and discuss among ourselves so they understand the line of march. They understand the information that they're going to be sharing with the public. And so I'm encouraging you. Encourage your family members to get on board. Let them come and let's talk. Let's move the movement forward. There's a dire need for that. Right? It's 7:30. Dr. Hinds is here. And so let me get straight into our morning discourse with Dr. Hinds. Dr. Hinds, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
How you been keeping?
All right. Working.
All right. I was told that we have to keep some sections of the U.S. in our prayers. They are expecting hurricane. I think it's Florida. Is it?
Yeah, Florida is expecting hurricanes, so we should keep them in our prayers. But we should keep Florida in our prayers also, because that's where they killed two black people. The racist gentleman went into the store and killed two black people, young boy, and he had his racist manifesto, and they knew about his racist manifesto, but nobody did anything, and went and killed two black people.
And I guess he was staying alive.
No, he turned the gun on himself and he was finished.
Okay. All right, so.
And the reason I'm raising that, Kedaki, is that, listen, I hate to state, but it is true. I'm beginning to fear for black people in Guyana. And I'm not being alarmist, because some of the things I read that people write about black people and so on, we know about the Hungry Belly and so on, but on our programs, the so-called trolls who come on and say all kinds of things about black people. In a sense, they're putting out their racist manifestos there. And I fear that kind of culture is going to move to Guyana. There's definitely, anti-black racism is definitely on the rise. I think when they call us racist, they know that we are not racist, because they know what racist means. A lot of them are literate, and they know racist means that you believe in superiority of your race, and they are aware that that's not what we do. So when they call us racist, it's a way of calling us slaves, calling us low-class people and second class. And I am afraid, with all the guns in Guyana and the aggression of some of these people against black people, I fear that kind of thing would come to Guyana.
Well, quite frankly, like you said, there is justification for such fear. As you started talking, I remembered seeing a video on social media of a young African Guyanese working on some construction site, apparently taking a break, and the Indo-Guyanese boss, contractor, whatever, came and said, "What you doing? Take a break? Why get up and do me work?" Two things met for take at son. Black man and zinc sheet. Right? Black man and zinc sheet. That was
I saw that.
good. I haven't heard the ERC or CIOG or any one of these self-righteous organizations speak to that video. But I am not referring to it in that context, quite frankly. I'm referring to it to highlight the demeaning manner in which the contractor expressed himself, and to say that that is what is widespread in the society. That is how Indo-Guyanese businessmen, or the moneyed class in particular, for the greater part, see Afro-Guyanese. And so the possibility of them just feeling that they can murder them at will is real. It is real.
Yeah, and you said the money class, and you know, it's easy sometimes for us to beat up on the money class, you know, because we are then being politically correct. Nobody can say we're beating up on Indian people. But the fact of the matter is that it's not just the money class. I think that thing, I don't know whether it's prevalent or widespread, but I know it's a strand that runs through non-African communities. I think we can see it among even the Chinese immigrants that come, you know. So I don't think it's confined to just the Indian money class. I think it's a strand in the society, and it comes to the fore when there is a combination of two things. When there's a government that is non-African. In our case, it's East Indian led. And when Africans are making demands, I think the combination of the two, the rise to power of an East Indian government and the rise of African demands on the state, I think that combination leads to a certain kind of reaction in non-African communities. I think it's a strand that is there, and that is not confined just to the money class.
Yes, in the light of the challenges facing the Afro-Guyanese, we had the recent visit here in relation to reparations and the apologies, and at the same time we had the government making utterances that were seemingly aimed at equating indentureship to slavery. One of the things I want to note openly, like I have done before, is the apparent good relations that I assume chairman of Reparations Guyana, Eric Phillips, has with the government of the day, and yet when it came to the discussion of reparations and the apologies, there apparently is a falling out over who is entitled and who should lead. You've been following these discourses, you've been following these apologies, these appearances, these presentations. What's your take on it?
Well, let me say Brother Eric can speak for himself, so I don't purport to speak for Brother Eric. I don't know the ins and outs of Brother Eric's relations with the government, whether they're good, bad, or ugly. That only Brother Eric can speak to that. But not only the government, representatives of the government, but Indian Guyanese ideologue. We saw people like Vishnu Bishram in the papers weighing in on the subject. This equating or near equating of slavery and indentureship. It's an old trope, if you will, an old argument by sections of the Indian leadership, Indian Guyanese leadership in Guyana and Trinidad and Suriname. And it had gone dormant for a little while, but it now raises its head again. Let me say a couple of things. First of all, it took the Gladstone family to come to Guyana for Guyanese to wake up to the reality of something called slavery and how determining that thing has been. You know, in our country, our region, we know of slavery, but we have never defined slavery or situate the slave narrative as a defining narrative, a defining factor in shaping our society. We've never in Guyana or the Caribbean. We know it existed, and but we have never articulated in a defining way to the point where it forces us to make crucial decisions. Now here is a white family that owns slaves, and obviously the prominence and the wealth of the Gladstone family in British society is as a result of the participation of their forebear in the slave project. And that this family, after 200 years, has come out in the open and acknowledged that, look, we are rich, we are prominent because of what our forebears participated in, that we are rich and prominent because of what they did to black people in Jamaica, in Guyana, and we are coming to Guyana to say we are sorry. Now we can ask. I understand why people would brush aside an apology, because an apology is not a big deal. It's a small step, if it's a step at all. Maybe a quarter step. Nigel Hughes calls it a half step. But the significance of it is that here are white people, Europeans, in their personal and private capacity, saying to the world, this thing called slavery, this thing has been definitive. They're admitting definitive in our family wealth and by extension the wealth of Europe. And it took them to come to our country for slavery to again be raised without any excuses. And the minute it's raised, people are equating indentureship with it. No, it's such an insult to black people. Indentureship itself arose out of the rejection of freedom from slavery. That's when black people freed themselves and walked off that plantation to stand as free human beings under the law and as workers demanding wages as free human beings under the law. They resorted to indentureship as a means of rejecting the affirmation of black freedom. So something that came out of the rejection of the affirmation of black freedom is now equated to slavery. I repeat, indentureship itself arose out of a rejection of the right of black people to declare their freedom from slavery. Yet you are now equating slavery with the thing that was created as a rejection of black people freeing themselves from slavery. But But you're able to do that because the state in Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean has never situated slavery. You don't have a course on slavery at the University of Guyana. You don't have a department of Black Studies, African and African Diaspora Studies at the University of Guyana or the University of the West Indies. At the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, I think you have a few courses and so on. But you don't have a department. I teach in a department of African and African Diaspora Studies. And that department is in a school that includes the Department of Asian American Studies, the Department of Trans-Border Studies, Women's Studies, and Justice Studies. I'm saying the model that sees African and African American and African Diaspora Studies as serious enough to become a department. Now here is UG, God bless them. And I congratulate UG for taking the role. But UG sets up a center for migration studies. What the hell is that? Why not set up a center for racial studies or a center for ethnic studies in which you have a unit of African and African diaspora study, a unit of Indian diaspora studies, a unit of Chinese studies, a unit of Portuguese studies. Why not do that? You come up with this nebulous thing called migration. What is migration? But people didn't migrate. Migration doesn't cover the forced removal of Africans to the Caribbean. Later on, Africans migrated back to Africa, and even then, you know, one cannot call that migration. Or Africans came from Africa to America and so on in the 20th century after slavery was over. Perhaps you can call that migration. Because migration suggests that people, at least they were not forced to move. They made a choice to move. But the African movement was not about migration. That enslaved person picked up in Africa, brought across the Atlantic in the transatlantic slave trade, landed in Barbados, sold in Barbados, moved from Barbados to St. Lucia or Barbados to Guyana. That is not migration. That is forced removal. So here is UG giving us this thing about migration. Again, it's a way of not dealing frontally with slavery. Slavery was not migration. Indians and Portuguese and Chinese who came here, they migrated. The early Indians who moved from the islands and move, these are native Indians, and move to what is now Guyana, that is migration. But the African movement is not migration. So we are not covered under that thing that UG has set up. And I want to make this loud and clear to African people. It's another way of negating the centrality of slavery. Because if we accept the centrality of slavery in shaping social, economic, and cultural relations after 1492, then there are certain obligations the state throughout the Americas must have. It is the same reason that Europeans, the European state, European families can apologize and admit about slavery. But the European state, the states of United Kingdom and France and Netherlands, etc., and the United States of America, the minute they admit and apologize to slavery, then they have to change the old narrative that they have put out there for centuries about themselves, about the nature of their wealth, because we hear Europe is rich because European people are exceptional, or Americans are exceptional. They're rich because they're enterprising, they engage in business. They're rich because they work hard. The minute you admit to slavery and you apologize to it, you now have to say, we are rich because we worked those goddamn people for 400 years and we pay them nothing. Imagine having a business and don't have to pay your workers. You become rich tomorrow. And so the whole narrative of Europe would have to change if they admit. And the whole narrative of the state of Guyana would have to change. The state of Guyana then becomes responsible. You see, you can't explain Black people's experience within the context of a nation state called Guyana or Trinidad or Jamaica. The nation state is a civic state. We share the state in that nation state. Africans and Indian, Guyanese and Chinese and Portuguese. What we share in the Guyana nation state is the state. I share, you share, Black people share more with Black Surinamese and Black Brazilians and Black Jamaicans and Black Americans and Black Africans. We share more with them from a national standpoint than we share with our Indian and Portuguese brethren. It's easy to unite with Black Trinidadians and Black Venezuelans and Black Brazilians than it is to unite with Indian Guyanese. That's a fact. We are one nation, regardless of nation-state boundaries. We still can't unite with Indians and Chinese and Portuguese after how many years? And there is a reason for that. And the reason is cultural. And so what we've been trying to do in Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean and all over the world is trying to force Black people into this concept called the nation state. And for them to define themselves within the nation state. I am Guyanese, full stop. I'm nothing else. Well, Guyana can revoke my passport. Although I was born there, if they think I'm an enemy combatant and I'm an enemy of the state, they can take away that passport. That passport is given to me by the Guyana state. And the Guyana state can take it away, and therefore they take away my citizenship, my Guyanese-ness. But my Africanness cannot be taken away. My Indianness, my Chinese-ness, my Portuguese-ness cannot be taken away. And so this concept of the nation state has served to bury slavery. You know, the nation state cannot talk about slavery because the nation state, the government, the state of Guyana would be accused of being partisan. So it cannot talk about Black people suffering. It cannot talk about Indian people suffering. But the fact of the matter is that the state of Guyana today, the state of Brazil, the state of Trinidad, the state of St. Lucia, are consequences of the slave state. And in many regards, they resemble the slave state. They resemble the slave state. The social relations. I was charged in 1983 for damaging a tomato. Let me repeat that. I was charged for damaging a tomato. It's a law that dates back to the slave plantation. The slaves used to damage crops on the plantation as a means of protest. And the slave masters brought in these rules that if you damage a crop, you damage crops, you're punished. And they found themselves into colonial law. And they're still on Guyana's books. And I was charged for damaging a tomato. We had a march. In 1983, I was leading the march in Buxton, a march against hunger at the time. And marchers went into the schools to bring the children out to join the march. And they went to English Church School, and they had just finished reaping tomatoes from the school garden. In those days, they had school gardens. And some of the young people in the march went downstairs, and apparently, you know, I don't know if it was willful or not, because I was not downstairs, I was upstairs, speaking to the older students and telling them why they should join our march. You know, they had chained the school gate. And some of the young people might have mashed a couple tomatoes. And about 2 weeks later, the police came to me and said, there's a warrant for me. I said, for what? They said, you have to appear in court for damaging a tomato. And that case ended because teachers whose name I won't call because some of them are still alive, they refused to go to court and give testimony against me. But more than that, the magistrate, a lady named Miss Chinta, was an Indian national. She said, what kind of nonsensical charge you bring against this young man? And she threw out the charge. But those slave offenses are still on the book. I am making the point that the Guyanese state is okay for the government to say that white people should give us reparations and they're committing crimes against humanity. But the state itself has refused to give reparations. As I said, one form of reparations put slavery as a stand-alone course in our curriculum. Put the African experience from the Middle Passage to the present as a standalone subject at CXC. Then you are talking business. That is reparations. Because slavery defines everything in Guyana and the Caribbean and the diaspora today. It defines what we eat. It defines the lack of a rounded education. It defines health. It defines government. It defines economics. And yet we do not study it. And the least that the states in the Caribbean can do is not only call for reparations, but give reparations starting with education and locating the African experience, which is definitive. Now, look, if you take away the Indo-Caribbean experience from the Caribbean, it will make the Caribbean less whole, W-H-O-L-E. You take away the Chinese experience, you take away the Portuguese experience, it will affect, it will alter the Caribbean story. But if you take away the black experience, it changes fundamentally the Guyanese and Caribbean story and the African diaspora story, the story of the Americas. I am not talking here about African superiority, because there's no superiority that comes from slavery. But I'm talking about the uniqueness of our experience. Take away the African civilization of the wild coast, and we go back to the wild coast. The Indians and Chinese and Portuguese were not there. And Africans that won their freedom from slavery. Let's call a spade a spade. And the others are not going to call it, so black people have to call it. People like myself and yourself have to call it. And now is the time. I took white people after 200 years to come to Guyana and to tell us, to wake us up to the definitive role of slavery in shaping our lives. The Amerindians were living in their own civilization before 1492. Slavery came, it wiped those people out from the Caribbean. Wipe them out, wipe out their civilization. And it created a European civilization that was based on the inhumanity towards African people. And that inhumanity towards African people has shaped all our post-1492 instincts. The 1823 rebellion is known and famous for the number of enslaved people who participated, between 9 and 11,000, the most in any slave rebellion in the Americas. But it's also known for the level of brutality. Over 200 people rounded up, cut off the head, put them on stick at parade ground. Even for slavery, that level of humanity was astounding. Slavery defines our trajectory as a Caribbean and as a Guyanese state and society. Somebody asked me, yesterday I was on a program in Antigua, I think, and they asked me whether I think Guyanese in Trinidad and Guyana and Suriname, whether all the ethnic groups will accept the various narratives, whether Africans will accept the narratives of Indians and Chinese and Portuguese and vice versa and Amerindians. And I had to say, they all must first accept the African narrative, because the African narrative leads us to the other narratives. You have to first acknowledge the African narrative. European capitalism would have developed without indentureship. But European capitalism could not have developed without African enslavement. That is why Eric Williams titled his book Capitalism and Slavery. He didn't say capitalism and indentureship, capitalism and slavery. I rest my case. Mr. Amsterdam, perhaps you're muted.
Sometimes I do talk to myself.
I suspect so.
Yes, you know, Dr. Hines, I find it quite interesting. This attempt to impose itself, as I call it, on the entire discourse about reparations. We're having apologies here, there, and everywhere. But like you rightly said, the state is allowing individual families and so on to apologize, and itself not taking that responsibility, because it will take a different look, if I can call it that, when the state acknowledges its rule, its inheritance from enslavement. We are talking about oil in Guyana. We perhaps you were one of the first persons who said, listen, the state should use some of that oil funds and pay reparations to the descendants of enslaved Africans in this country. I see a lot of people championing the establishment of the School of Migration, I think it's called, which you hinted to at the University of Guyana, as perhaps
more than hinted.
as part of this big thing to right the wrongs of the past. Give us your thoughts specifically on
like I said, that migration thing does not address the African condition. It does not address African history. Migration occurred in the 20th century. African migration to Guyana, African movement to Guyana was not migration. It was forced removal from Africa and forced dumping. That's not migration. Indians and Chinese and Portuguese migrated to Guyana. Native Americans, or Amerindians as we call our brothers and sisters, they moved from the islands and they moved on to the mainland. That was migration. They weren't forced. Africans was forced removal. And we have to make a distinction between migration and forced removal. In ethnic studies, they talk about forced migration. And we in Black studies don't use that term. Because our experience did not come out of migration. It came out of forced removal. So, I disagree with the model that UG has used. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all for these things. That is why there's a distinction between ethnic studies and race studies, because they're two different constructs. Ethnic studies is the study of ethnic cultures. Ethnicity itself arises out of culture. In Europe, there are different ethnicities. There are Irish people, English people, even England itself. Irish people, Scottish people, English people, those are ethnic groups. All of them put together are white people. So race and ethnicity are two different constructs. Now, groups, ethnic groups, sometimes as in places like Guyana, they conduct their relations, their ethnic relations, as if they're races. So we have coined the term ethno-racial. Indians and Africans are not historical enemies. They never enslave each other. But their relations resemble that of blacks and whites. Whites enslave blacks. And so their relations are determined by that. Indians and Africans didn't enslave each other. But their relations, because it was carried out against the background of slavery. We behave as though we are historical enemies. And we carry out our relations within the context of race. And you can't dump all of them together. I will live as a short, halfway stage. I will accept an ethnic studies model where you study the experience of each ethnic group in Guyana. And you can put them under the same center. Center for the study of ethnicity and race. Not center for migration.
So let me ask you this. Is this conceptualization of the center, is it ignorance, academic dishonesty, an attempt to deceive? Where do we cast that?
It is part of our trajectory. That is how we have behaved. Whether it's dishonesty, I wouldn't know. Whether it's ignorance, I am certain it is not ignorance. I know it's not ignorance. They know better. These are academics. They look across the world. They look at America. America got, like I said, I'm teaching in the Black Studies department, and you have Black Studies department right across America in all the white schools. You don't need a Black Studies department at Howard, where I studied, because every department is a black department. At Howard, they have a department of Afro-American studies, and then they have a department of African studies. Because they don't need for a department of black studies, because it's a black university. But in one of our units was what was called black politics unit. So you can major in international relations, comparative politics, political economy, or black studies. And you can minor in any one of them. So they know of the model. What we need is a center for the study of the black experience in the Americas. You don't want to confine to the black experience in Guyana. Center for the study of the African experience in the diaspora. That is what we need, a standalone center. But if you say, well, we don't have resources, so we want one center, I will settle for that as a short term. And say, let's have a center for the study of the Guyanese peoples, or the ethnic groups in Guyana. I can settle for that. But ideally what we need is a center for the study of the black experience. All over universities, we have these departments, but we also have centers. Where I work, there's a center for the study of race. And Guyana has to move there in order to do justice to the black experience. I was on that program yesterday morning. I'm sorry that you didn't get to carry it. But the announcer was reading comments, and he said people were saying, when I talked about the 1823 revolt, people in the Caribbean were saying they learned something new. They never knew that. They never knew about the 1823 revolt and importance. They never knew of the level of violence. They never knew of the number of enslaved people. And this is our Caribbean. And so the least we can start with reparations in our Caribbean is to put slavery and the black experience as a standalone subject.
There's
a whole course where I work that is called the transatlantic slave trade, that just study the slave trade. Then we have courses on slavery. We have courses on pre-colonial Africa. I am right now teaching early African civilizations, Nubia and Egypt and Ethiopia. The African experience has to be a standalone experience, and it has to be taught in that way, because it answers the question whether African diaspora experience began with slavery. We don't think that African experience began with slavery. And if we teach it as a standalone, we get to begin the African experience, in a sense, what Professor Michael Gomez called reversing sales. So we have to, the sales brought, the ships brought the enslaved to the Americas. And in order to discover the origins of the enslaved Africans, we have to reverse sales and go back to Africa itself. And you can't do that in a center for migration.
I totally agree. I not only agree but understand and echo the calls that this thing, slavery, is separate and apart and should be looked at as a standalone. But the PPP government, I need to be more specific if I can say that, has actually called on the Gladstones to not only apologize to slavery, but for indentureship. And I'm quoting from a Yahoo News story here, right? The Gladstones also apologized while they were at the University of Guyana for slavery. They apologized for slavery, and they also apologized for indentureship. Is that, would you consider that a victory on the part of the academics who are arguing that indentureship is slavery and should be?
No. If the Gladstones were involved in indentureship and slavery, you're telling them, make one trip to Guyana, apologize for slavery, then go back to England and come back and make another trip and apologize for indentureship. No, they're here. And they apologize for both. They're assuming that we are racially literate, that we are literate of our own history to know that their apology for the two things does not equate the two things. The apology don't equate the two things. It's just a matter of convenience. You have a country that had both systems. Their forebears was involved in both. Sorry, Mr. African, sorry, Mr. Indian.
And so,
but they're two different stories. And they assume that we know that. They assume that we know that.
And so they commit. Go ahead.
Well,
The commitment of a fund for the various unnamed projects in the country to maintain a meaningful and long-term relationship between their family and the people of Guyana. What are your assumptions in relation to?
Well, they have to determine how they want their money to be used. I can't tell the Gladstones. We should not be able to. We should not tell the Gladstones how to use it. It is the state that has to advise the Gladstone. Here are programs that we have.
But why not a Afro-Guyanese representative organization? Because we're talking about reparations to slavery. What role does the state have? What role does the state have in this reparation discourse?
What you mean? What role does the state, or what role organization?
The state. I'm asking what roles should the state be involved in this discussion/negotiation about reparations for slavery, or it should be left to Afro-descendants organizations?
Well, Afro-descendant organizations.
And so it is those organizations, in my mind, which should be saying to the Gladstones, this is how we think you can right the wrong with your money.
I agree. But then we have to call on the states. So, when I say the state, we are talking here about the education arm of the state, such as the University of Guyana, such as the Ministry of Education. Those are education arm of the state. And so in any case, whatever funds come, we are saying start with the education.
What about economic empowerment?
No, the economic empowerment is there. That's part of the discourse. But you see, when you confine it to economic empowerment, you give them a way out. They're saying that the economic empowerment, it must come from the white people because they benefited economically. They can slip it. But when you tie them, that is, we have to redefine reparations from purely economic to humanistic. So it's economic, it's health, it's education, it's everything, because the African spirit was crushed. And it's the African spirit must be repaired, not just our economics. We must be repaired as human beings. So we have to broaden the definition of reparations from just purely economics to include health and education and spiritual and all those other aspects of our existence.
Thank you. It's 21 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. Is there anything else you want us to talk about?
That if we broaden the definition of reparations, we then broaden our targets from just Europeans to include our own states in the Caribbean. You broaden the definition, you broaden the target. But the state of Guyana, under this regime, this government, and perhaps even under a black government, are going to try to slip they're going to try to slip the ball because they would not want to commit the state towards the unique experience of part of its population. Hence, the unique actions that you need to take, what we call affirmative actions. But the Guyana Constitution, as the lawyers have been pointing out to us, in Article 15, says that where the state sees a a wrong that is done to any individual and any group, the state needs to step in and correct it. So there is constitutional cover for affirmative action. And for the state to step in and to behave in an equitable way rather than an all-encompassing way.
Thank you. At 23 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour, let's open up the lines. The lines are open. The lines are open. I'm prepared to take your questions and your voice notes, so you can call and make your contributions. Affirmative action on the part of the state. I noticed recently, I think it's the Rosal Sugar Estate that was reopened.
Yes.
Is that considered affirmative action or?
No. That's political favoritism.
Call you live. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, call you live.
Good morning to you, Mr. David. Good morning to you and all my black brothers and sisters. Mr. David, well done. God, I always said God make clear. And same way you're talking, Walter Rani was talking, and win the world. A lot of country go and have a lot of supporters. But to you, Mr. David, I want to mention this to you. And I need you to address all, if you can, this morning, because I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to talk to you again. Mr. Abiy Norton talking all the time about poverty. It is good. That's why God tell me that he could be the next president. And poverty calls for money, good jobs, health care, education, good benefit, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying this here now. When you guys take office, all senior citizens the next month must receive $60,000 if we're talking about taking out people and black men out of poverty. It costs money. We could use the idle money. All senior citizens, $60,000. All black senior citizens, black, not Douglas, black senior citizens, every year they must get $100,000 every July. They must enjoy the idle money before them eye close. Every household must get the $1 million. Not the rich household, poor household. We got to be careful when we say every household. Government workers must have a 35 raise when you guys take office. The idle money must pay for this if you're taking out black people out of office. All government workers must stop receiving paycheck every month. You work first when you have to wait 2-3 months. That must stop. We get idle money. They must receive pay every 2 weeks. Why? Because if a child come home and said, Mommy or Daddy, I have to get the textbook to go to examination coming up. Mommy and Daddy mustn't tell them, oh, you're not getting paid monthly and wait till month. No. After school, I go buy the book that you could get it and get your education. Every pass a law that every police officer shows us GRA immigration must carry gun on duty. Guyana government step up them act. If we could take out people out of poverty. All this sports, we must invest more in sports. That Transgarden could sit back and look at it and you say, oh, tonight my country in that race. Let me see my countrymen and women bring first and second. We go show them how we go provide 50,000 jobs. Guyana, the government must introduce their own security officer. I don't believe in private officer anymore. No private. Government officer, school officer must be there 24 hours. Every school and every hospital and clinic, government must provide that. school guard must be there for ease the traffic down because some drivers believe they own the road and own people's life. We must bring back school guard. We will provide that like a job. We must bring back the 3 planes. One for England and Canada, one for America, and one for the Caribbean. Look at traffic every day. Black Guyanese travel every day, 24/7. That's why all these planes come to Guyana. That guy make a mistake and said, Armand, oh, the government will not bring back no plane. Or you want to provide work for black people and other people in the country and take out black people out of poverty. We must bring back our plane. Let Flash Garden sit down in his own country plane. We will lease them because we get oil money and travel back and forth. Now we see United Airline, thank you for coming to Guyana because I see the traffic and the wealth and they could make a money. This is what the government must do. We must have to do what we say and begin campaign and let black people know that these are the things you're going to do. Don't wait till when the election for talk these things. It's now you all have to talk these things here. This is what's going to bring black people out of poverty. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for your call.
Let me know if I talk nonsense this morning to you, Mr. David.
Comments, Dr. Hines?
Yes, because I think it's a very fair manifesto the brothers put forward there. He has put forward proposals where all of the people will benefit. And then he says, then there are groups of workers, whether it's policemen, whether it's civil servants, who are below the curve. And so you must give them particular attention. I love the idea of the emancipation payout to African people. I love that. So you have the cash grant, not cash grant, the cash transfer, the WPA cash transfer, which is race neutral. Regardless of what race you belong to, every household gets it. But then you give additional transfers to sections of people who have been historically disadvantaged to bring them up. So I like his manifesto. It's a fair manifesto. You deal with the question of everybody across the board. And then you deal with the question of the survivors of enslavement.
Thank you.
Bring them up. Yeah.
Caller, thank you for holding your life.
Yeah, blessed good morning to you, Mr. Kadaki, and Mr. Hines. Once again to the Guyanese nation. Mr. Kadaki, one more time, a blessed good nation. Blessed good morning to your station and to you. Guyanese nation, please, let me understand one thing. Mr. Hines, I respect what you have said, and I learn a lot from you in many ways. And I thank how you make it clear, because exactly what you make clear is exactly what I'm declaring. That's how I live. Now, we are not living about the base is not race, but the base is about the treatment. But you know to yourself, as I know, as many Guyanese know, the African race is being violated and marginalized all over the world, especially Guyana and Guyana. We talk about Guyana. And so where the Constitution speaks about the government must make a formative action. Take formative action, I mean, for where, and where things may be a flaws for a race or for what is going on in the country. We Guyanese or we African more or less can expect at least this government, this PPP government will never take any formative action to improve a better way for the African them when they are the exact people them that is oppressing the African, and they are the exact people them that is trying to tear the African down and tear them apart. I am not speaking directly to all the Indians. I'm speaking to the PPP government, the hierarchies, those in authority, and to my rest of Indian brothers and sisters, I am talking about those of them who, like many other black people, who are being marginalized because of religion or because of their relationship with the APNU or people the PPP do not appreciate. I am asking all of you, which I'm speaking to the righteous-minded and hearted people, because as I said before, I speak truth to power, and my word will convict minds and heart. There's the purpose of my message, there's the purpose of my word, there's the purpose of Mr. Kadaki program, and everything. I'm not speaking on behalf of Mr. Kadaki, but I'm speaking on behalf of righteousness. I know what righteousness stands for, and that's what it will do. The world will convict those who are guilty and those who are plotted to do the evil, those who are vindictive and those who are wicked. And so I speak truth to power. I am speaking to all the righteous-minded Guyanese. I am not speaking to a specific race, a particular race. I'm speaking to the human race, those who are righteous-minded and righteous-hearted, whether Indo, Chinese, African, or who you are. Guyanese, those who are going to vote for the next election. Do not allow this government and the private sector, them who are working with them, to rob you of your vote, because for the next election, that is what is going to happen. I am telling you that. I'm not predicting it because it's already taking place. The private sector, most of them, not all, but most of them, will be used to get the vote for the PPP government because it can make their financial status better and it can put them in a better place that they can have dominion over the citizen of Guyana, keep people in poverty, that you could depend upon handouts and these things. So I am calling for those who will be voting, all the Guyanese, them who say me a voter, come out and vote the next election. Vote strongly for the change of this government so that our nation can strive, our descendants can be blessed, we can enjoy the blessing that this nation have, the wealth that this nation have. And I am saying, if the AP and you want the votes them or would like to have the vote, or the poor people, and you got to declare to the people them and let them know that you will indeed help every family with how much million or how much from the Isle money. Guyanese don't depend on no handout, but Guyanese deserve to enjoy, like how Exile Mobile enjoying. I respect, look, God, mostly do the interview with the American ex-ambassador, that is Miss Lynch. And you hear clear, the woman makes a point clear in a diplomatic way. She's looking after the society. What the embassy that does, they look after the just cause of their country. And they want betterment for their country as well as Guyana. Guyana is secondary. Their country is first, is number one. This is their criteria. This is where they focus on. This is where they come. Guyanese, you born Guyanese, you who are here, let this nation be number one, not no party. So do not allow this government to continue controlling us and putting infrastructure, and we the citizens is suffering. All in the market, you could hardly buy greens, you could hardly get one meal. It's too much of disgrace that is falling upon us. And next election, we have the opportunity. Don't let a Bible vote. Don't let a Bible, and those kitchen slaves who call themselves the African, them who run and overrun, all they try to do is to certify and verify to keep them in power for 2024. Please, y'all come to the send by time then. Don't let money buy you, because the word of God said people rather darkness and light. But righteous-minded people always like the light, and Guyanese are filled with righteous-minded people more than those who are looking for darkness. So Mr. Kadaki, have a blessed day. Guyana have a blessed day. Guyanese have a blessed day. We will get there. We stay in righteousness, and we're going to vote the next election. Don't cause it what it will. Vote for a change of this PPP, oppressive, wicked, evil, and vindictive behavior going on over this nation. Have a blessed day, Guyanese. We are going to get there.
Thank you, caller. Now, Kams, I have a voice note to play. Anything you need to say before?
No. I think the caller was,
Good morning, Kadaki. Good morning, our listeners on the program. I would like to clear the air. I know today you're having Dr. Hinds there, and good to see you there, Dr. Hinds. And much praises for the work that you're doing, for the whole your party is doing, the team is doing, is bringing awareness to our people so that we know, where we come from and where we are going and where we are today. But I want to clear you a little on what I said a couple of days ago. There was Kadaki asked a question. I think that is a problem. I don't think I remember. I understand the question properly. If it was that, do you think the WPA should join with the? Do you think the WPA should engage the PPP or something? That I can't remember exactly what the question was. But my understanding of the question is that if, and for a fact, it was a question from Miranda Brown. He was just repeating, and he put it out so that we could discuss it on here, which is very good. The thing is that I didn't quite understand the question, but my understanding, my answer that I gave according to my understanding is that should the WPA engage the PPP? That was my understanding, and I said yes, under conditions, and not to be collating with them. That is what I want to make clear. I never ever agree for the WPA to collate with the PPP, because if you collate with the PPP, it means that you will demean your character, because the PPP, as far as I understand, is the dirtiest party in the whole Western Hemisphere right now. It passes the Republican Party, is the dirtiest party in the whole Western Hemisphere right now. So if you're going to join with the PPP, it means that you're going to defame yourself, right? And I never meant that. What I mean is that, I said I like the Takuma Ogunse idea when he said a few nights back that all that he is thinking about is that we should have a representative of every ethnic group in Guyana in the government, on the government, and he's saying that should be in the Constitution. It shouldn't be just word and mouth. It should be legislated in the Constitution that every ethnic group should have a representative, should have equal representation in the government, so that there will be equal share and distribution of the wealth in the government, and so on and so on. That is what I was saying, really. I like that method. It is a very fair method. It is a very humane method, and it is what I think, the way we think we should go, because when I analyze everything else that was going on in Guyana, listening to you guys who are the professionals in politics and in economics and different things, I understand that election sometimes is just a symbol. In truth, as Dr. N said way back, it's just symbolic of democracy, because in democracy, election is one of the factors in democracy where you elect a leader. It is, for me, as I look through Takuma Ogunse idea, as I look through that, I see that election is only relevant. Election is only good at the level of picking your leaders for the different ethnic group. But when it comes to the government side, when it comes to running the country, election is just used as it's used as a tool to put which government they want in office. And when I say they, I mean the foreign countries, because as far as I understand, as I listen more and I do my own research, I understand more, like Guyana we still come under the rule of, like, United States, for example. And I see now Britain want to come in and make their mark back on Guyana, because I wonder, and this is a good question I want to ask, I wonder if this Blackstone family that came down here, and then after you see the former Prime Minister came down here also, I wanted to know if they're testing the water, because the British government didn't make no apology, which is they're supposed to do, which they know they will have to do concerning reparation, more than apology. But they sent a family force to test the water and see how it would go, and then they send the emissary, the ex-prime minister, to see and to come and give you whatever they're trying to do. I wanted to know if they are in cohorts with the PPP government, so that the PPP, because nobody knew that these people were coming, the PPP government want to use this time, being that Guyana is not stable right now. They want to use this time to get a run through when it comes to reparation and just whitewash the whole thing and just do something that is not significant for our black brothers and sisters. So this is something to think about, because every action have an equal and opposite reaction. Every action created something, some kind of set off some kind of of ideal response going down the line. You know what I mean? So this is what I want to say. Thank you very much. If this voice message get to play today, well, thank you very much. But I can't be on the show today. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Yes, Dr. Hines, I'm sure you recognize the question he was talking about. Miranda Brown asking if the WPA is open to discussions with the PPP about power sharing, as I say. But I think, I know you will respond, but I think we have to address that on a wider program in the context of the old power sharing discourse and supermajority and everything else. But the mic is yours.
We are going to engage the PPP when the PPP is prepared to engage the entire opposition. So we are not going to engage the PPP as a means of them saying, look, we engage in the WPA, they are part of the opposition. We're not engaging the PNC because Norton refused to shake my hand or because Norton doesn't recognize my government. So we, for now, any engagement with the PPP would be part of a wider opposition engagement. Now, if there is a government of national unity that includes all parties, the PNC, the PPP, we are prepared to be part of such a government. In that sense, we will be part of a government that includes the PPP. But a government of the WP and the PPP, for now, it's out of the question. So we want to make it very clear. We are going to engage the PPP only as part of the wider opposition for now. That can change because politics change very quickly, but for now, we are not going to be used to undercut the rest of the opposition. You want to engage us as part of the wider opposition. If we're going to be part of a government that includes the PPP, that should be a government that includes all political parties.
But let me ask this question. Somebody asked yesterday why I always refer to myself as the devil's advocate. There's nothing wrong with referring to yourself as the devil's advocate. It's just one who seeks to stimulate a discourse from a different point of view. The question is Dr. Hines, given the history of the PPP, do you believe the PPP is likely to enter any such discourse about a government of national unity? What should I say? Sincerely?
No, when their backs against the wall, they will do. In 1961, they rejected Sidney King's joint premiership. By 1963, when they saw power slipping away from them, they start to engage the PNC, by which time the PNC tell them where to get off. In 1977, when it became clear to them that the PNC was going to hold on to power at all costs, and that the communist bloc of countries were recognizing the PNC, they came out with a national patriotic front of a government between themselves and the PNC. In 1985, again, when they noticed that the communist countries were beginning to unravel, they engaged the PNC in 1985 in talks. In 1997, when they noticed that Mr. White was putting 10,000 people on the road every day and that power was slipping away, they came to the table with the Ordmonster Accord. The PPP only comes to the table when they see power slipping away from them.
But they never honor their commitments.
Well, I don't want to think. I don't want to because I don't know of any mainstream political party or mainstream leader on any commitment unless they're forced to. That's my point.
Call it live. Thank you for holding.
Good morning, Kadaki, and good morning, Dr. Hines. Now, Doctor, the talk was about the part where this thing what they say that we migrated, you know. When you are, according to Amanzo Bolton, is intellectually lazy, you will use that term of migration for the slaves that were being brought here. Migration is when you willingly decide to go to another place. Better yet, to look at the prospects. You go there because the prospects greener in the other country. So you're going to migrate there and you're going to take up a new life. But the Africans, many of the Africans, during the slavery and prior to slavery, when slavery started, did not migrate. I see these people in this country who feel. We did not migrate to the Western Hemisphere. We were forcefully taken, we were kidnapped and abducted to come to the Western Hemisphere to begin a life of slavery. Imagine you own all of this and they scramble you, put you up at the holding pens that they had by the ocean there, to bring you left your wife, your children, blah, you name it. Some children left the parents and that kind of thing, forcefully. So you call kidnapping and abducting of a person. So I don't see how the things who call themselves educated in this country and other countries who may use the words that slaves migrated. I could remember the installed big guns, the Duns Thug, jump up and say that Africans came here for a betterment. When you see I talk, you just put me around the place. We didn't come for betterment. We were taken into slavery. They came from Calcutta slums for betterment in the New World. And if you check out the other parts of Europe who came here, many of them were prisoners living in the slums of the country. They came here too. They came here for betterment. They were offered salaries. They were offered, you could return home. They get everything. They come here with the name. They come here with everything. We had our names. And we don't know our names. We know nothing of our history, our formative selves. We are now learning because we go on Google, and then they got Africans coming to the country who will tell us things when they feel like. Like I was amazed 2 Sundays ago when I learned that in Kenya they have 1,000 different languages in just the area Kenya. So ask yourself, the entire continent of Africa, how many different tongues are being spoken in that country, in that continent, and to see we who came from the Congo and wherever we came from, we have no recollection of what we were. Now this Gladstone come and he tried to offer a apology. Now the Duns Thug, you know, when you talk about this thing, it does just infuriate me. He went now to say, oh, we can't forget we must be apologized to. Even if, you know, like when you go to a place and you say, man, Kadaki get invited to this swing, and you, Dr. Einstein, get invited. And you're going to say, Kadaki, so you get invited, me they get invited. All right. I'm going to ask them people for let you come. And when you and Kadaki appear at the swing, the people cater for 10 body. You make 11, they're going to bring 10 food and you ain't going to get none. That is the same thing with the PPP and the Duns Thug. The people done got in the thing. We going to apologize. We got to look after these people. He come now and push his uninvited self to get an apology. You know why? The money, the reparation money, what we supposed to get, that is all that they are seeing that they must get. But little does he know, and his team knows, that them white people don't make sport. They done pay them already, and should they appear to collect money, them same white people were saying they like them would haul them through the lowest court and extract every cent or the money what they used to pay and bring them and pay them on the plantation. And if the greedy could lead the wander, let it pursue them people. Them people would destroy them within a twinkling of an eye. Listen to the talk for Sarah Lynch had with Gordon Mosley. A lot was said. And if you got sense and you got top IQ, you will understand what that diplomat was saying to Gordon Mosley and to the entire world. She spoke. The only thing which she know, that is what she talk. And when it comes, I like the answer you gave, Dr. Hinds, with the PPP now trying to forge alliance with the WPA. That's what we want for here. You're not accepting them. Because right about now, the PPP knows that they cannot win an election single-handedly. They know to the breast that 2020 they were given a song thrashing. They get a thrashing before they come the credible and valid. When the credible and valid 115 PNC to 50 something APNU. They come, they bring, they didn't want, they try for run amok with the local government and they get another whipping. So right now, you know what we're going to do? We see that APNU got a lean in and WPA got a lean in. So suddenly now they start to talk about Walter Rodney. They start to talk about engaging the WPA. WPA got to know where to stand. And WPA with heads like you and Kadaki and Ogunse and the others, I know will not be caught into the web to accept to talk with the PNC. And yesterday I said the poem, 6 little mice sat down to spin, pussy pass by and cheap peeping. What are you doing, my little man? Making coats for gentlemen. Shall I come in and cut off your thread? Oh no, Miss Pussy, you will surely cut off our heads. Put this poem in front, this nursery rhyme. I learned it since I was like 4. So the memory good. Alzheimer's in there. And keep it as a mantra and a motto with going forward with the PPP. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rondo. And I sure Rondo meant there the PPP, not the PNC. Voice note.
Good morning, Kanaki. Good morning, Dr. Hinds. When David Granger was in power, this by Barrett keep talking about road, if we can eat road, if we can eat road. Now this by Barrett running the show with the buy in finale, and all they're doing is giving Guyanese.
Follow the line.
Voice note. Good morning, Kanaki. Good morning. Where's road for eat and drain for eat and these same things we just ridiculing and condemning is the same things he pushing now and giving black people for eat. I can't understand though.
Call your life.
Yes. Good morning, Dr. Hinds. Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. A pleasant Wednesday to you. I would just like to touch on 3 points. I don't know if the listeners may have heard about Ken Sawale. He was a Nigerian writer, he was an activist, and he was a member of the Ogun people, in which they, at that time, that was during the 50s, with these big oil companies where they would have be drilling on the people's land, and because of the amount of activity, it destroyed the environment. So he was an activist for the environment too. And due to his activism, you know, the world would have been made aware of what was going on at that time. And he was executed by his own government by hanging. And I mean, that is what a runaway government does to their own citizen for standing up for their people. And I would like to encourage all Guyanese that we have to stand up right now. The other point is slavery. I mean, the conversation is hot and it's alive. And I would like to say that it's just a little observation that should Guyana be the only country that was affected by slavery, I think that this government would have wiped it directly out of history, because you know what? That is what they're attempting to do by watering down what is going on, by putting indentureship and slavery in the same sentence. It's a different thing and it cannot work. So because it's an issue that is worldwide, they're not getting through with it. And Walter Rodney, Dr. Hines, have you ever thought about what Guyana would have been should Walter Rodney given a chance to be in Guyanese politics today? That's a question to you. And I mean, you can think about it, but the thought came to me, so I'm asking you. So that's my contribution, gentlemen. You have a good day and God bless you as always. Thank you.
Thank you for your call. Have some voice notes to play. Let me play them, please, Dr. Hines, and then you will respond and close the program. Due to the Guyanese Morning Time, we're chatting with Dr. Hines on reparations and other matters. Voice note here.
Good morning, Kadaki, and to you and your listening public. I would like the first caller to call back and explain to this nation or to the black community how is it that $60,000 a month can change the poverty life of senior citizens of our country. And how is it $100,000 per person, per one black individual, annually could change the life of black people poverty that they're going through in this country? I would like him to call back and explain that. When I have a family of 5, 3 small and me, my wife, when we go to the market and we spend $20,000 and fruits, including that money, how that money can change the poverty line of black people in this country? Some of these people just call and just open the mouth to air the mouth. They need to call proper numbers. Black people need to know what money. 100,000. $100,000, $60,000 ain't no money for that. No money for talk about. So the man need to refresh his memory and get his statistical right, and then call back and make his contribution. Thank you for listening.
Sometimes we are too critical of ideas. You know, I remember the story. I always talk about the story with the old lady and the tramp. Man went and he said, man, I got hungry, ain't got nothing. She said, no. He said, well, let me make some soup. She said, I ain't got nothing for make soup. He said, well, I got a stone, let me throw it in the pot and we gonna make soup. And as the stone start boiling, the taste, it ain't got taste. And he said, if you got a little salt, it's gonna get better. And she throw a little salt. And if you got piece potato, it can get better. And gradually, he kept encouraging her that if we had this and if we had that, and she was finding it. And eventually they had soup. Why am I saying that? Flash Gordon called and he made his proposal. That's his manifesto. It's a manifesto that we can improve on. Right? We don't have to tell people they're airing out their mountains. So they have ideas. We have to improve on those ideas. Okay? Let's just keep that in mind.
Morning, Kadaki. Morning, Dr. David Hines, Professor Hines. I'm calling to follow up on Flash Gordon, what he said. He made some good proposal. He have some good ideas. But I think the issue I have with him is that he calling these things out too early. The election is still far away. And PPP would take your ideas and run with it. Guyana don't have copyrights law. PPP would take your stuff and run with it. You can't come out too early with stuff, man. They can't come out too early. I have a manifesto list for the next government. I don't know who's gonna be the government, but I have a manifesto, a sweeping one to victory. When it goes out there, you get all the votes gonna come to you. But I'm not saying it yet until the right time. And the right time, I think, is the year when the election is, not before then. You can't trust the PPP. They're gonna listen to you guys and take your ideas and run with it. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for your VN. Dr. Hines, it's 3 minutes past the 9 o'clock. Over, the mic is yours.
The question by the sister, have I ever thought about what our government might have looked like if Walter Rodney had a chance to govern? And I want to tell her I think about it every day, every single day. And I don't want to get into speculation because it's dangerous. Walter Rodney died in 1980. I can't tell you what he would have done in 1990 or 2023. I can only look at his ideas then and ask whether his ideas are still relevant. And insofar as they're still relevant, persons like myself and my colleagues in the Working People's Alliance, and indeed outside of the WPA, we strive to put his ideas into action. Revolutionaries never really got a chance to show what they could do. In our Caribbean, for a brief moment, in Grenada, the Maurice Bishop government had a chance to show what left-wing revolutionaries would do when they went into government. And in 4 years, they were able to almost transform Grenada. They wiped out literacy, almost wiped out literacy. They brought in new forms of democracy into the country. Unfortunately, that revolution was blown up by internal wrangling. But Grenada is the only example we have of the Walter Rodney generation in our Caribbean when they had a chance to govern what they could do. But they would have done. I think, like I said, in Grenada, I will give them a healthy passing grade for what they were able to do with the economy, what they were able to do in education, what they were able to do with things like healthcare and so on and so forth. As I said, it's unfortunate that the internal fighting and imperialist penetration led to the demise of that revolution. But yes, I think, sister, every day what Guyana could have been, but I don't want to speculate. All I can say is we are here today, 43 years after Rodney was assassinated. Those of us who stood with him and fought with him, some of us are still around. And if given the chance, a fair chance, we would show what we thought he could have done with the powers of government. You might be speaking to yourself, Mr. Amsterdam.
You put in a 12 cents meatball, you was done nice. I going to give you a word of advice. Get your meat out of my eyes.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop, located in the East Renville Market Meat section. Call us on 609-2049. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop brings you the best in fresh cut meats and